Hello everyone and welcome to the Heroes Hype Challenger Series. This is day 2 of this week's games and I am joined by Anna Prosser herself, who was here on Monday. So Anna, what can you tell us about how the games went on Monday?
Oh, that was so long ago, Gillyweed.
Your mic sounds a bit strange.
It does it?
Yeah, it sounds a little robotic. It's kind of staticky.
Well,
that sounds better.
It is?
Yeah.
Let me double check some things on our call. But in the meantime, of course, it was Kyberries and I, and we had a great time. We saw some compositions that were kind of similar to what you and I saw in the NA Open during the weekend. A lot of like things that were kind of being shaken up and people being willing to try new heroes. I can't, the games are blurring together a little bit for me, but I believe we saw another Arthas, which was a huge highlight for me. So,
was it Zeveron playing him?
I can't remember. Gilly, I just came in so hot from the bus, I don't remember anything. But we do have Zeveron and Kappa Wolves up next, and I see they're already drafting, and I'm interested to see whether we're going to see anything weird from them.
Well, let's hop over to that then and see what's going on, as I would assume that we might be seeing, it looks already like they're going to be wanting to bring in that Arthas, as this is a favorite of theirs on Tomb of the Spider Queen especially as well, where they get the Jaina, Tyrande, Kerrigan. They won't have the Uther, but I think they're totally fine with that. They can pick up either Malfurion or Rhaegar and then grab Arthas from there, and then we'll see them using that Syndragosa in, and they can kind of use it as what people might use Sylvanas for, where you can stop the forts and structures from being able to attack. But in this, it slows heroes down as well, so he can really just throw out that Syndragosa, and then everyone from there can just really capitalize on that, move in. It's a big push forward, and then take out a lot of members. But what will Kappa Wolves be able to do to deal with this? It looks like they're going to ban Arthas. No! Is how they're going to choose to deal with it.
That is a smart move, but it makes me so sad. Because as you were saying, Gilly, I think that one of the coolest things in the game that doesn't really necessarily lie within the bounds of one type of hero is that ability to take structures out of the equation. And structures are so important to defending the big, large golems and beasties and objectives that you can take on certain battlegrounds, or to just defending your structures or your team in a team fight. It's your safe haven. So anything that can take that out makes a hero really worth taking regardless of other abilities. So that's definitely something that Kappa Wolves knows. And what do you think Zeveron's going to do now with that Kerrigan?
Well, it's going to be all about keeping her alive, so they're definitely going to want to pull in a Rhaegar here, and if they can't get the Rhaegar, then the Malfurion for sure. They are going to need a lot of good heals. They already do have Tyrande to help supplement that, and they can pull in somebody. She can get something like the Protective Shield, which will also help with that too. And I think one issue for them might be that Butcher, because he will have the possibility of getting the Divine Shield, and then he'll be unstoppable while he goes in and charges in and maybe tries to take out either that Kerrigan or the Jaina. Both can be pretty squishy, especially if Kerrigan doesn't really have any of her shields up. They're going to look to be able to just defend her, and I think if Muradin isn't picked up here by Kappa Wolves, which I think he probably was, oh no, it'll be Stitches, I think Zeveron will then fall back to having that Muradin as the strong front line instead of that Arthas. But it's definitely going to be a blow, although it's interesting to me that Sylvanas is still a possibility.
Yeah, I think you're right, especially Tomb of the Spider Queen. She can be very useful. We call it her mini curse, but again, the ability to either solo a lane because she's not going to take damage from structures, or to protect things that are pushing, like web weavers here on Tomb of the Spider Queen, could make her a huge asset. But I guess as I'm looking at Zeveron, that's not going to be their main concern right now. They really need, like you said, someone that can keep Kerrigan alive, and then a tank. And they're going to opt not to go with Muradin, who, or actually Muradin's already banned, but they're going to opt instead for Tyrael. So that means they're going to have a great engage. And I was going to say, I think that Zeveron really has got to look to be super aggressive from the very beginning here, because they don't have some of those things for Kerrigan to lean on.
Yeah, and what'll be nice too is if Kerrigan can kind of move around to the side and jump in with her Ravage and then immediately hit the Maelstrom like we often see very aggressive good Kerrigan players doing, then we can also have Tyrael Judgment in right at the same time, and that's a very good aggressive starter that then we can follow up from Tyrande, more stuns, Jaina with her slows as well. So we're going to have a very good strong engage from Zeveron. It'll be up to Kappa Wolves to just try to live through that initial engagement, kind of move back, try to wait out, get away from that Maelstrom wherever possible if they can't burn her down. They do have possibilities like the Butcher and Kael'thas to try to take her down quickly, but look who else they have too. They have Tassadar and Uther. They're going to have a ton of sustainability, so they might, they might be looking just to try to sustain through those fights, through the initial combinations from Kerrigan and Jaina, and then burst down from there. Or they could be looking to get a good hook with that Stitches, pull someone into them, create a 5v4 situation, and then engage themselves.
These teams are actually pretty similar if you look at them. I mean, we have those two half supports, Tassadar and Tyrande, that are very useful in a multitude of ways besides being supports. We have two very strong melee assassins in the Butcher and Kerrigan. And we have these two engagey tanks that are a little bit squishier than someone like, say, a Muradin and have a little less survivability than someone like Johanna. And then, Rhaegar and Uther definitely on the same tier in terms of healing. And Jaina and Kael'thas, known as these first pick burst damage dealers. So these two teams are really wanting to play kind of the same game in a lot of ways, which is going to be really fun to watch because that means we get to see a battle of wits and skill for sure.
Yeah, I'm really loving the bursty versus bursty. Yeah, definitely Kael'thas will come a little bit later when he picks up Ignite at 16, but he still can deal a lot of great damage and has that gravity lapse to help capitalize on stuns too. That's another great thing to mention. The stuns for Kappa Wolves are going to be great if they can hit those hooks from Stitches. So Stitches is going to pull someone in. They've got both a gravity lapse, they've got the charge from the Butcher as well, and even a Hammer of Justice from Uther. So they have a lot of different ways to capitalize on that. No matter what lane he might be in, they can really just make sure to have someone who can grab that person off of the hook, and from there they can throw a lot of damage on them.
Yeah, that is going to be a big part of the game because there's a fair amount of stuns from Zeveron too. But a lot of times what you see people going for is that, like, can I have Muradin and Uther and Tyrande and Kerrigan together and then I can just stun you a bajillion times and you can't get anywhere? And things are a little more evened out in this composition.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. I'm really excited to see a Tyrael Kerrigan composition. It's going to be, I'm thinking it'll most likely be the Judgment just to have, so Kerrigan can have kind of a dive buddy to initiate. But we never know. Sanctification can always make some sort of an appearance. But let's go ahead and introduce these teams. It will be a best of three, guys. Both of the games we have tonight will be best of threes. And in the blue, we have Zeveron with Koth and Luck playing Jaina, Equinox, as always on the Kerrigan. Faye will be playing Tyrande, Mad Timmy playing Rhaegar, and on the Tyrael will be Fury.
And for the Kappa Wolves, who will be in red this time, it's going to be Big Impact on Kael'thas, Yelcow on Stitches, Solo Nazgul on the Butcher, Hawk Fu playing Tassadar, and Aka Face, or AKA Face, playing Uther.
Alright, well, it seems like we are going to have a lot of heroes running straight into the mid. That's fairly common in this, and then if they can't pick up a takedown in that middle lane, we'll start to see people rotating. We do see Tassadar already using that Oracle. That's going to come in a lot, really handy in being able to have vision there from that Tassadar, especially on this battleground where there are 2 turn-in points. So that can definitely be an issue when trying to be able to stop an opponent's turn-in, is being able to see where they're going to be at. And so both teams really have that. Faye is going to be able to also provide vision, but she might be taken out here and will do so. A quick first blood here in this game.
Yeah, we saw those stuns with follow-up stuns on that Stitches hook, and that's going to be the name of the game for Kappa Wolves. They're going to look for lots of opportunities to get those picks and hope that that's going to get them the experience lead that they need to grab more real estate on this map. If you manage to push your lanes out very well in this map early on and control those 2 turn-in points, it can really be a determining factor in this particular battleground.
Yeah, it definitely can. It can really help you catapult into being able to continually get turn-ins over and over again, and that can be really devastating for your opponents because while they are struggling to to clean up their lanes, push them back a little bit, you can be rotating around the map, picking up some of those other objectives like the boss or some of the bruisers and siege giant camps, or even just getting more gems to be able to turn in later on. I wanted to mention, looking at Tyrael's level 1 talent pickup, he did get that protection in death, which is a really cool talent. It does rely on you to die, but if you do die, typically you just want to try to do damage with your Archangel's Wrath. It's like a bomb that will go off after a few seconds. But with that protection in death, it actually shields any of your teammates who happen to be underneath it for 50% of their health, which is a ton of shielding potential.
It's an interesting talent because, like you said, it means you have to plan on the fact that you are going to be taken down a couple times. So what that tells me is that Zeveron isn't necessarily counting on Tyrael to be able to take tons and tons of hits and still escape. But I don't know, you're more of a Tyrael player than I am, so is that a common first pick for that talent?
When I see it, it's not usually common. Usually it's going to be the Regen Master or the Smite damage. But hold on, we've got a bunch of stuns going down on Solo Nazgul who will be taken out. So Zeveron's going to trade out those blows. When we do see that protection in death, sometimes it indicates a sanctification pickup. Not always, definitely, but it does really lend itself to Tyrael thinking that he will be a target and choosing to pick that up to try to keep his teammates just a little bit alive, just a little bit longer because of that.
That makes a lot of sense. We see, looks like a pause. Big Impact's going to pause for lag, which does happen sometimes because unfortunately the internet doesn't always agree with our best laid plans, Gilly. So are we going to go to cams?
We will go to cams just to make sure all is fair. We can talk a little bit more about these talents while we're doing so.
Let's do that.
All right, so we've got Felon Fusion for Kael'thas, so he is looking at sustainability, but for his health versus his mana that you'd get with the Mana Addict. But I really like that he picked up Nether Wind, which increases the range and speed of gravity lapse by 30%. So it's going to make it so that it's a lot easier for him to hit those stuns, like we mentioned, the possibility of wanting to throw those out really fast if you do end up getting a good hook.
Yeah, and we saw how well they could coordinate those when we saw them take down, who was it, Tyrande right there at the beginning. Yeah, and the Butcher can be great for that as well. With his Ruthless Onslaught, he can just tunnel vision on somebody, charge at them, and do lots of damage, stun them. But the problem with that we also saw happen was that the Butcher has very little to no escapability, and he really needs to not be alone when he's trying to disengage. We saw him be taken down because of that.
Yeah, that's something that a team can really try to capitalize when playing against the Butcher, is trying to maybe bait that out and then try to move back toward the teammates as much as possible. Because if you can get the Butcher into the situation where he is too far forward, where his charge has gone too long, it's going to go until he hits the person or he can't. It times out, basically. So if you can really try to get him to capitalize on that and get him out of position, which is what we saw there, and then throw a bunch of stuns on them from there, you should be able to take him out. He's really quite squishy.
And that synergizes very well with Stitch's hook, as opposed to something like Burrow Charge, or even like, you know, Sonya's hook, which brings her to the person instead of bringing the person to her. Because what that does is it brings a hero toward the Butcher and Stitches, ostensibly, instead of him having to charge in and then having to get out. So that's going to be something that's going to be really crucial to their strategy, is making sure that the Butcher's there to follow up on Stitch's hook as opposed to kind of being out there in front. Yeah,
that is a great point to make. They can really rely on bringing the battle to them, but only with one person. And then from there, they'll feel more comfortable because it'll be a 5-on-4. Looking at some more talents, we have Mental Acuity being picked up for Tassadar. That's been a really hot choice lately. We're back in game, so I'm going to switch back to that. But especially on this battleground, Tassadar's been picking that up a lot lately, just making sure that he does have vision and can compete with the vision potential from Zeveron, who will be able to throw out owls quite often and to spot where the rest of the team is. And now a great Primal Grasp from Kerrigan goes in, and some stuns from Tyrande, as well as the slows from Koth and Luck, are going to be able to help them pick up that takedown on Stitches.
That's great. We also did see that Kerrigan did grab Envenom, which is a great ability when you just can't quite finish somebody off. You can throw that on top of them, and as they run away, their health bar just disappears. I was playing Kerrigan last night, and man, is Envenom satisfying in those situations.
Yeah, it really is. And it's so infuriating too if you don't have a well. So if you can kind of watch that and know whether or not which opponents have used that well, you either are going to definitely force them to use it, or if you're lucky, they won't be able to back in time. They won't be near their healer, and then you'll be able to take them out. We have Web Weavers, the first ones spawning, and they will be for Zeveron. Since they're so early, they may be looking just to try to push in each lane with them. They're not pushing down bottom for now, but Tassadar is pretty good at being able to stop the push of a Web Weaver because he can shield the structures just like we see there. So looks like they're focusing mainly on top and mid, with maybe Rhaegar circling down to try to start getting some soak. Just looking to pick up those towers, gain that early game experience.
And I like this move here. I have seen teams that will focus on just one Web Weaver, try to push in and get a fort as opposed to just taking down the towers and wells. But like I said, I feel like the indicator of success on this map is so often the real estate that you're able to grab in the lanes early on and being able to control those turn-in points. So I like this move from Zeveron.
Yeah, I do as well. They're even rotating up. They know that this tower on top is also low, so they're going to grab that. It's also just a great move because if you can get your heroic abilities before your opponents, then you can sort of have a good time period, a good window where you might be able to get either another turn-in or you might be able to pick up some of the merc camps, get some rotations in, pick off some of the members of your opponent's team. Anything like that where you've got that good advantage with the heroic abilities.
Mad Timmy down here in the bottom lane being very brave, actually paying very little attention to Tassadar as he kind of took down quite a lot of the health off of this tower here in the bottom lane and doesn't seem to mind running right into Hakfu.
Yeah, and that's interesting considering that Hakfu did end up picking up static charge, so he is looking to do a little bit more damage with those psionic storms, but it doesn't really seem to faze Mad Timmy too much. Now, it looks like we will have the bruisers being picked up, so that's going to help Kappa Wolves be able to push back a little bit in their lanes. All the lanes are pretty pushed for the most part, and they're not too far behind in experience, so a really good defense here, considering the fact that they've had already a spawn of Web Weavers against them.
Indeed, that's true, Gilly. Looks like we have 42 gems now turned in for Kappa Wolves. And we may see an engagement here as it looks like Yelcow has a target on his back. We tried to get a primal grasp on him, but it failed. We are going to get the chill from Jaina, but that's not going to be enough to hold Kappa Wolves in place. It looks like Zeveron is not going to get the engage they wanted there.
Zeveron really trying to push back Kappa Wolves, and although they may not have been able to take anybody out, they did at least stop the turn-in once again. So that's something that's really nice for them. They've been able to stop this turn-in a few times, while they've also started to get a lot of gems for themselves. Now Equinox and Mad Timmy are going to try to turn in. Looks like they'll be able to do so. So they are already almost caught up in terms of gems that have been turned in, and they've already had one spawn. That would be very nice if they could get a second one in a row. That's kind of the dream on this battleground.
And that's exactly what we were talking about earlier. Being able to control that area of the map is showing so important to them because, like you said, Kappa Wolves had plenty of gems to turn in, but they just haven't quite been able to do it. And in the meantime, Zeveron has full roaming capability over those areas. And as a result, they are now going to get their Web Weavers spawning again. Those Web Weavers do spawn to where the lanes are pushed. So in the top lane, for example, we're going to see those Web Weavers very close to the fort already.
Yeah, and that looks like that might be the point of siege as well for Zeveron. Remember, Kappa Wolves don't have their heroic abilities yet. Zeveron has picked up Maelstrom, and there it is, the Sanctification for Tyrael. That's going to be a good one. We also have Starfall, the Ancestral Healing, and the Water Elemental. So their point of siege will be up top. They know the Web Weaver is already pushed to the furthest here, and they know that they have some of their opponents who are defending in other lanes. It's very possible they could try to get into an engagement here. It's all going to come down to whether or not somebody gets too far forward. The Phoenix is here to zone. That means that we have heroic abilities up for Kappa Wolves as well. What did they pick up, Anna?
Looks like they're going to grab Phoenix, as you saw, Putrid Bile for Stitches, Furnace Blast on the Butcher, Archon for Tassadar, and Divine Shield for Uther.
Well, I'm thinking that we'll most likely see that Divine Shield on that Butcher who will be able to use the Ruthless Onslaught. And while he has that, use that Furnace Blast as well, be able to push in and then deal a lot of damage in an area. So Zeveron are going to have to really make sure that they're not too grouped up around the target of that, or they're all going to take a whole bunch of damage. But I think Zeveron are looking for a fight here. They're still stopping the turn-ins. Once again, Kappa Wolves are denied being able to turn in their gems. They're now holding 72.
Ooh, and that starts to play tricks on you when you're holding that many gems. It starts to make you play really safe because you don't want to be the one who loses your team's opportunity to take advantage of those battleground objectives.
Yeah, that is definitely true. You do not want to try to drop those. Of course, your opponents can't pick up the gems that are dropped, but they can camp around where they're dropped, and if your teammates don't pick them up within a certain amount of time, they will despawn. So that means that you've just flat out lost the gems. It's a horrible feeling to have, but that's not going to be the case for Kappa Wolves for now. Although they still are holding 75, they have been able to turn in their gems. We're going to have red web weavers spawning. We'll have to see what they can get done with them, though. As you mentioned before, they do push to where the lanes are already pushed out, and for a couple of those, it's not looking so good, but the bottom looks pretty good for them.
Indeed, and actually the mid is surprisingly far forward. I don't know if that has to do with the timing on when those minion waves were taken out, but it's going to be right up against the wall there as well, and nobody seems to be attending to it.
Yeah, actually they did a really good job of quickly rotating around, getting those lanes pushed as much as possible. The Phoenix is going to come down to help zone this top, and they're going to be able to get both of those towers. It's exactly what Kappa Wolves need right now. They're behind in experience, but only by a half of a level. So if they can catch up, get their 13 talents at the same time, start hitting some of those hooks, pull someone in. They did get a good gravity lapse on Equinox, who's taken some damage. She's going to throw out the Primal Grasp. Divine Shield has to go down to keep Stitches up, who's going to start dropping that Putrid Vial, but the Butcher is out of this fight. Hawk, who has dropped the Archon, he's holding 40 gems. He does not want to go down, and meanwhile Stitches and Akaface are solo. Stitches will be the next one to go down. Akaface trying desperately to heal himself up and run away, but a Primal Grasp is going to bring him right back into the fray, and that is a whole bunch more gems that have just been dropped for Kappa Wolves.
You know, I thought we would see that Sanctification combined with the Maelstrom, and that seemed to work really well. The Ancestral Heal went down on Kerrigan as well, so she was just the epicenter of damage in that fight, and they did a really great job of using that ball of abilities to do some serious damage.
Yeah, you think about it, and Sanctification is kind of perfect versus the Furnace Blast, because if you wait and use it at the same time, it's only going to hit Tyrael, and he can sustain through that. He's got lots of healing, and of course Rhaegar can drop a bunch of heals on him as well if needed. So that's kind of, I think that's a really cool way of trying to deal with that Furnace Blast, which does so much damage normally, and it's kind of hard to deal with because he is unstoppable with that Ruthless Onslaught. There's not a lot you can do to kind of avoid him. So if instead they can just say, okay, it only hits this one person who's our tank, we don't mind him taking damage, it's kind of the perfect way to go. Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense to me. Looks like the mid fort is in danger for Kappa Wolves. We have 4 members of Zeveron going to be working on that. In the meantime, Kappa Wolves are up here dealing with the boss in the top lane.
Yeah, they didn't lose any structures to it, so that is nice, and they have picked up their 13 talents, so they're going to be on the same tier for quite a while now. Looks like they are going to be picking up that Flamethrower as well as Prescience and a Shrink Ray. On top of that, also it looks like the Butcher does want a Spell Shield, so realizing that he is taking a lot of damage between that Kerrigan and the Jaina is going to be able to pick that up as well. Looking at the other side, we do have the Sprint for Kerrigan. It's going to help her just have a lot more mobility, be able to either get into the fray a little bit faster or be able to get away from it as well as a Shrink Ray of their own. So we're going to be seeing small heroes on both sides of the fights.
Sprint is so important for Kerrigan because you have Ravage on your Q, which you can jump in and engage on a fight so well, but same kind of effect as the Butcher. She needs a way to get out, and Sprint does a really good job of providing that.
Yeah, it really does. I can't even imagine Kerrigan without Sprint. Though I know a lot of people said the same thing about Jaina, and they've made the improved Ice Block work as well, but Kerrigan definitely needs that Sprint. And what Kappa Wolves definitely need now is to push back the lanes, as Zeveron are pushing hard on this bottom lane. They've got the Web Weavers once again, as well as the Siege Giants too, so they're putting a lot of pressure on this bottom lane. And with a few more structures, they're going to be picking up those level 16 talents as well. That's going to be another nice window for them to try to maybe pick up some more objectives on the map or make something happen in terms of an engagement.
There's no hero that is quite so notably huge at 16. Ooh, a big hook on Fury, but that's luckily the tank. He's going to have an easy time getting out of there. But no hero that's quite so notably beefy at 16 as Kael'thas. And so Zeveron really wanted to beat Kappa Wolves to level 16, which they've managed to do. And now Kappa Wolves really wants to get there, and they're going to try to probably survive and defend until that point.
Yeah, these hooks have been hitting, but none of the stuns have really been going out quite so fast right after the hooks. And then on top of that, it's most of the time been Fury who can Eldrin's Might right away, which we've seen time and time again, him throwing out his sword and then teleport to it. And now they got some serious work done with those web weavers. They got both of the towers on bottom, they got one of the ones in mid as well. On top, thanks to that boss, another one went down too. So they've picked up those 16 talents, and we have 3 blood for bloods. That is going to be a lot of healing the damage as well. And then on top of that, we have the Numbing Blast, of course, for Jaina to help control the fights, lock someone down with that root. But a True Shot Aura for Tyrande. So they're going to be looking to get a lot more damage as she just passively grants that extra basic attack damage to her teammates.
That is interesting. It looks like Zeveron feels like the most important thing for them to do is maintain this momentum of being the dominating team fighting force. And pushing force, for that matter. I mean, being able to deal damage is more important to them than anything like survival at this point, which I think is smart because they do have a really good momentum and lead right now, and if they can manage to keep that up, they're not going to have to worry too much about the other stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the Blood for Bloods will help with survival, but oh my gosh, the Starfall is so perfect there in zoning, but a great Divine Shield did keep Yelkow safe. A hook is going to come right back in on Equinox, who immediately is going to get healed back up. There goes the Ruthless Onslaught into the Furnace Blast, but everyone survives, and now Equinox is on the chase with that Maelstrom. He's going to start moving in. Sanctification also went down, which helped keep everyone mostly healthy there. Fury and Mad Timmy are getting a little bit low, but they are able to take out that keep. Now Mad Timmy is going to be pulled back into the fray. Will he be able to get out? A great Flame Strike is going to ensure that he does not. And at least Kappa Wolves were able to pick up a Rhaegar takedown for their trouble, but they have lost a keep. That means that catapults will now be spawning against them in that mid lane.
That was good coordination from Kappa Wolves because of his ghost form, Rhaegar is hard to pin down. He can mount instantly and run away, but the fact that you had Phoenix and then also that Flame Strike there to burn him down before he got anywhere really saved them in that situation. And it compensates for the fact that, like you mentioned, the hooks that have been hitting haven't been on necessarily the ideal targets for burning down, say, a damage dealer. Yeah,
it's really been a testament to how good Fury's been doing of staying right in front. And speaking of which, he's right in front throwing out his Eldruin to try to stop these turn-ins. Look at Akaface, 50 gems. Gravity Lapse is going to go down, drop Fury right on top of a Psionic Storm. He's relatively low thanks to a nice Flame Strike now as well, and he's going to have to get back a little bit. And a great hook is going to go in on Faye, and a stun into the Ruthless Onslaught is going to ensure that takedown on Tyrande. Now Akaface should be able to turn in. Now we're going to see some Red Web Weavers, and they've got to be feeling a lot safer knowing that he dropped off a good 25 gems.
That's exactly the moment and the opportunity that Kappa Wolves wanted. They got a great pick. They got a turn in. That's going to help them defend some of this pressure on their base. It's going to give them a little room to think and to breathe. And what do you think they need to do in this time, in this space that they've created, Gilly?
They are going to need to push with their web weavers, hopefully get some structures as well, although Zeveron's going to be right on top of trying to take out the web weavers. So maybe split up a little bit of a push, maybe feign pushing in one, or what they could do is do this, push in one, but just try to like to stall out the other 2 lanes as long as possible. And maybe hope that they can get in and get some structure damage for themselves. Because what they really need is they need to catch up a little bit in experience. They're on the same talent tier, but they are behind. So at this rate, Zeveron are going to get their 20 talents faster. The storm talents that are oh so important for battles in the late game. So we're going to see them pushing in toward mid. They did get that fort down. That's going to help a lot. Look, they've already caught up in the level, although Fury is on the chase, going after Kael'thas, who has to get the Divine Shield. Phoenix and Starfall both go down in the same area. It's an area of pain, and the Ice Block goes down on Jaina. Now Kerrigan is down, but so is the Butcher. We've got both of those melee assassins out of the fight, but a Flame Strike is going to ensure that Rhaegar doesn't escape, and a hook might mean the same thing for Fury, who's trying desperately to get away. Is going to maybe Eldruin right over a Flame Strike. What a beautiful move there, and he will be able to secure his safety.
Wow, what a fight that changed hands so many times, and maybe, again, it looks like Fury is looking to engage once more. They see that Yelkow is very, very low. The Blizzard from Jaina is going to continue to take him down, but not quite enough. Looks like Tyrion's going to disengage.
They have to be so careful with Flame Strikes now, because that can really quickly mean they're a death of a hero, and they've just got to be careful when engaging, and especially they were 3v4, but they were able to at least push them back. It looks like Yelka was trying to get a pull on Fury, but wasn't quite able to do so. They are going to be pretty content to back off now. Remember, they have so many gems, they've instantly got another turn-in ready. And Rhaegar is not up yet. Fury is going to try to stop this, but with the Psionic Storms and the Flame Strikes to keep him at bay, they're going to get a second turn-in. And now we're seeing a little bit of shift in momentum here toward Kappa Wolves.
Yeah, I mean, look how close the experience is now. Yes, the Zeveron is going to hit level 20 first for sure, but Kappa Wolves is not far behind. They have plenty of opportunities to do that, as they are going to, as you said, have this second Web Weaver push. And this kind of falls in line with what we were talking about, especially with Kael'thas, that once they hit 16, all of a sudden they are really, really extra scary, and they're taking advantage of that.
Yeah, they're also, well, Tassadar is harder to kill, so is the Butcher also does more damage, but it looks like we're going to try to have another engagement here because we do have Zeveron at 20, just a smidge earlier than their opponents. What can they make happen so far? It looks like everyone's been able to sustain out through the big push here from Zeveron, and Fury is done. They're going to move up. They are going to be able to take out Tassadar, who is a very tough one to take out. So that is nice. Ice Block going to go down from Kappa, be able to sustain him through as well, as the Water Elemental is still pushing. Kael'thas is down as well. 3 heroes are down. Yelkao's very, very low. And now Zeveron may have Web Weavers pushing up against them, but they're going for core. They've got 55 seconds before Kael'thas is up. And Solo, Nazgul, and Yelkao know it. They are hanging out in the Nexus. It will be game 1 for Zeveron.
Man, and Zeveron has plenty of structures to defend, so they don't need to worry about this even being a base race type of situation. They have handily given themselves the opportunity to take out that core. And in that last engagement, Gilly, I wanted to point out there was a perfectly timed ancestral heal there on Fury, who was playing Tyrael. And he was so low, but brought completely back from the dead. And then a lot of the engagements that allowed them to continue getting picks there were because Tyrael was still alive in that fight. So I want to give the little MVP to Rhaegar in that engagement, because I think that's what enabled them to have that momentum and ultimately end the game there.
Yeah, I really think that was a perfect place to engage by Zeveron as well. They picked up 20 and immediately went. They knew that they could not let the momentum continue to swing in favor of Kappa Wolves because their lanes were so far pushed now because of those 2 turn-ins in a row. So they did a really great job of realizing that, hey, although our lanes are pushed, we really need to go right now. This is our chance to make something happen. They had a couple of bolts. They had 2 storm shields, so they could back-to-back those as well and be able to sustain through a lot of that AoE damage that was being done from that Kael'thas. So it was a really beautiful, perfect place to engage by Zeveron, and they were able to win the game off of it.
That'll be game 1. This is best of 3, though, so we will see a second chance for Kappa Wolves.
Yes, we will indeed. We're going to take a short break while we get that game set up, and when we return, game 2 in this best of 3.